On this episode of the Books of Power, we are delving into Lineages and Swans, and Galadriel is name dropped at least. Lots of exciting stuff is happening here in Chapter 5 of the Silmarillion on this episode of the Books of Power. Greetings everyone, and welcome back to Silmarillion Sunday. Welcome back to the Books of Power. Oh my god, we're finally back. It took like what, 1,000,001 weeks, but we made it. I made it somehow. So good to be back. Like I said in the intro, we have so much to discuss today. Chapter 5 of the Silmarillion. Yes, we are only doing Chapter 5. I know I said Chapters 5 and 6, but listen. At this point, I've been saying to read like 2 chapters every time, and I never mean it in the end, because then I actually try to read the chapters, and I realize, oh my god, 2 chapters is a lot more reading than I thought it was. I always overestimate my own reading ability. I think too highly of myself. Also, other discoveries that I have made as far as the Silmarillion goes, I looked through my copy of the Silmarillion. I just kind of thumbed through it, and then I went to the back, and I found some resources that are going to be real useful and are also gonna make me real mad. So let me get into the back of the Silmarillion resources here. So you've got the index, which is incredibly helpful. If you have your copy of the Silmarillion, I highly recommend you be using the index, because the index is incredibly useful. It has every name, everything, and it gives a definition for everything, right? So like I said, names are one of the hardest parts of the Silmarillion. There are so many names, so many people or groups of people or cultures have multiple names, right? There's like, this is their name that was given to them by so-and-so of the Valar, and this is their name that the Elves gave them, and this is the name that, I don't know, Joe and J.R.R. gave them. Like, there's so many different names, and the back of the book helps keep it very clear. Like, for instance, at the very beginning of this chapter, we talk about the Vanyar and the Noldor, and if you go into the index and you actually look at the Vanyar, oh my god, I can't find it. I'm bad at thumbing through indexes. They don't make it very easy, but needless to say, they give you the definition. They give you who they are. I'm not going to look through it right now. We also have the map of, what is it? Bellerin. The map of Bellerin, which is going to be very important because we are now in Bellerin, as you have read in Chapter 5. We are now in Bellerin, and so many important things are going to happen in Bellerin. The map is going to be incredibly helpful because, again, this chapter and all the chapters of the Silmarillion, let's be honest, are full of so many mentions of names and landmarks and directions, and having this map is incredibly useful. In fact, I am going to pull up a map right now for those of us watching on the visual stream. I'm going to pull up the Silmarillion Bellerin map. Bam. All right, here we go. This is, just open it, I want to open the image. There we go, perfect. That's Bellerin and the lands to the north. This is going to be incredibly helpful, and we're going to see if I can use this map to try and piece together where everyone is. We have so many different characters and so many different peoples all scattered across Bellerin at this point, and Middle-earth, and Valinor, and Amen, and everywhere. So we're gonna do our best to try and piece it together there. So in the back of the book, there is that map. Keep that map. That is incredibly important. There's also advertisements for each of the Lord of the Rings books. And I gotta be honest, what person reads the Silmarillion before the Lord of the Rings? Like, who would go and find this Silmarillion and pick that up and be like, yeah, I'm going to read this, and then be like, oh, what's this thing, Lord of the Rings? I have never heard of this. If you're reading the Silmarillion, you're in too deep. If you are reading the Silmarillion, you are already stuck with us. You are on this ride and there is no getting off, okay? You are in too deep. They don't need to sell us on Lord of the Rings again. We already have it. There is the appendix, elements in Quenya and Sindarian names. Actually, I didn't know about that one. As I said, I'm very professional. And speaking of my professionalism, I have mispronounced a lot of things. You know, we've kind of joked here that, like, I do a lot of bad pronunciations. I'm very bad with the pronunciations. Well, guess what I found? There's a whole note on pronunciation in the back of the book. There's a note on pronunciation. And listen, when you read some of these pronunciations, okay, I think my pronunciations are better. I don't like to, I love Tolkien. I think he's a great writer, great books. This whole thing that we do here is just to talk about how great the Silmarillion is. Let's be honest, right? We're just here to praise, give this book even more praise than it's already gotten. But I disagree with one pronunciation in particular. So this doesn't give you the pronunciation of all the names, but it does give you sort of a guide, some useful things to keep in mind, such as the different syllables. It's not syllables though. It's the words, the letters, how to pronounce like certain letters and things. So, you know, my friend Acutely, I like to call him the god Acutely, made the dwarves, god of the earth and all that stuff. Well, there's a note on the pronunciation here for the term AU, okay? AU, and I'm quoting from the back of the book, from the back of the official book right here. AU has the value of English ow. English ow as in town. Ow as in town. Are you kidding me? Thus, the first symbol of Acutely is like English owl. I'm so mad. That means Acutely is not Acutely. That means Acutely is owly. I was close. I was very close. Okay? Acutely, owly, owly, tomato, tomato, potato, potato, owly, owly. You kidding me? I was so mad when I first read this. And then to make matters worse, when I first read this, I didn't read the whole fact that it was just talking about the beginning of the name, that it's owly. It's not. So when I read that, I thought it was literally saying to pronounce Owly's whole name, it's just owl. And I like threw my book down. I was like, are you kidding me? You're telling me this like Winnie the Pooh name, like Owl from Winnie the Pooh is the name for God of the Earth, but Owly makes more sense, I guess. So I didn't read the rest of the pronunciations, and you know what? I can't promise that I'm going to give you good pronunciations or that I'm going to read the rest of the pronunciations. There's a lot of notes and a lot of things to keep in mind. One, though, that is important is, for the future, is C. So for consonants, C always has the value of K, never of S. Therefore, Celeborn is Celeborn, not Celeborn. In a few cases, as Tolkis, a K has been used in the spelling of the book. So I pronounced Tolkis right. Thank you. Of course I would. How could I mess up the name of the best god in the entire universe of Arda? Tolkis is the best. But yeah, so Celeborn is with a K. That's, well, not with a K, but like it's the sound of a K, okay? And then moving on. So if you care a lot about pronunciation and you want to get all mad at me and rant on the pronunciations, there's a whole note in the back of the book on pronunciations that you can use. And besides that, continuing with the back of the book, there was something that's going to be incredibly important for us Today, unfortunately, and going forward in the future, are the lineages. And also, there's just some important and nice, helpful stuff with these lineages as far as general groups of people, such as there's the lineage of the Quendi. So it starts with the Quendi, then you have the Eldar and the Avari and the Vanyar and Noldor, Teleri. Is this on Google? I want to see if I can pull this up. The Silmarillion Quendi. I forgot the word. The words are escaping me today, which is really unfortunate since we're reading a book. Lineage. I can't spell lineage. All right, lineage. Here we go. Thank God someone scanned it and put it online for us. This is what I'm talking about right here. This. Quendi. So this is what I'm looking at right now in my book. Quendi. You got the Eldar, the Vanyar, the Noldar, the Teleri. And these three groups are going to be very important. And this graph is so immensely helpful. So I'm so glad that we can have this visual to try and explain things for those of you who are watching us on the visual edition of this. We have this little outline of the Quendi. And hey, if you have the book, it's probably in the back of your book. So take a look there if you need it there. But as I was saying, got the Eldar, and they're made up of the Vanyar, the Noldor, and the Teleri. And I love how it points out whether they've gone to Amen. So like the Vanyar all went to Amen. Noldor all went to Amen. Teleri, well, some went to Amen, and then some stayed in Bellerin, and then some didn't even make it and left the march of the Teleri east of the Misty Mountains, and then they went into other groups. And like, it's so helpful to have this visual here to just be like, okay, here's how it went down. Here's how it goes. And these lineages are also going to be important because you have other houses and like things like that going on. But for today, we have the lineage of Fenway and a bunch of other F names. All the F names today. Oh God. Isn't that, I read once they were saying that like, when you're trying to make a book, you're trying to write a story, you should try to have as many characters with different first letters in their names as possible so that way people don't get them mixed up. And I agree, because a lot of times, even in real life, I will not remember people's full names, but I will remember like the first consonant, right? I will be like, your name started with an M, or your name started with a B, or something like that. So it's especially helpful in stories when they do that. Tolkien didn't listen to that rule. So you have like the entire family of Fenway. Okay, get ready for this. You got Fenway, Fëanor, Fingolfin, Fingon, Finrod, Finnarphin, Findulius. I'm finna freak out with all these F names. But we'll get to that later. That is later. We are not into the House of Fenway lineage yet. Right now, we're going to start with a recap of last time, chapters 3 and 4, using our helpful little thing, Silmarillion's Writers Guild. As I said, this is an incredibly helpful resource for those of you who are following along and want to have a little summaries to keep up each week. Utilize SilmarillionWritersGuild.org/reference/summaries/home. If you just Google Silmarillion chapter summaries or like Silmarillion chapter 5 summary, like that's what I did this week. I just Googled this Silmarillion chapter 5 summary to give myself a little refresher on where we are. Silmarillion chapter 5 summary. This page will come up on Google. It will just say from Silmarillion Writers Guild. If you just click on that, you'll get straight to this list of all the chapters, all summarized. So this week is of Eldamar and the Princes of Elderly. But last week we had of Thingol and Melian and the coming of the Elves, captivity of Melkor. So I'm not going to read through this whole thing, but we're just going to hit on some important points. You had Melkor. The Valar were just kind of hanging out on their own, staying safe in Amen. And Melkor, they all kind of went to war. There was the big battle of powers, right? And then Melkor finally gets captured. Oh my God, we finally did it. We finally beat like the source of all evil in the world. And then with Melkor captured, the children came before Melkor was captured, but you know what I mean, okay? The children came, there's a problem, and because the children were here, the Valar are like, maybe we should actually like participate in life. And so they go and they fight Melkor and they take Melkor away. And then they have this big old debate about what to do with the Quendi or the children, or again, million different names. But the Quendi are just the elves, the first children of Ilúvatar. And so the Quendi, they're like, what do we do with the Quendi? Should we take them to Valinor, or should they just hang out in Middle-earth where there is currently no sun and only stars? And so some people are like, well, they should come to Valinor. And there's this whole big debate. And so then Oromi, I want to say, oh, where is it? Come on, where is it on this page? The Valar Angvan, the Valar sat in council. Oromi visited the 3 ambassadors, and then the ambassadors go, and then they're like, whoa, guys, Valinor, pretty cool. And so they come back and they take all their friends to Valinor, but some people don't make it. Like we said, we have this helpful little guide. Vanyar, all made it. Noldor, all made it. Teleri, some of the Teleri are a bit flaky. You know, they were the 3rd group. They kind of started to realize Middle-earth is kind of cool. I kind of like Middle-earth a little bit. I don't hate it here. And so they kind of had that big old debate. Moving back, they started to move on. And then we had the little cute love story of Thingol and Melian, where Thingol, who was Elwe, he was with the Teleri, and then he left his group. He was adventuring out to go and find his best friend Finwë. Oh my god, cool friendships, adorable friendships. He goes to try and find Finwë, doesn't find him. Instead, he finds this super cool girl. Her name is Melian. And then he's like, oh my god, this is she a Maya? I think she's a Maya. She's like so beautiful. And he like holds her hand, and then like a billion years pass by while they're holding hands and staring into each other's eyes. And then he finally snaps out of it and comes back into the world with Melian. And he's like, oh man, the entire universe has completely changed. So that leads us to here. The Silmarillion, Chapter 5 of Eldamar and the Princes of the Elderly. So, just some quick, helpful things here. The Elderly are elven folk equivalent to Eldar. So again, another word referring to the same group of people. The Elderly they're the Eldar, right? So we have of Eldamar and the Princes of the Elderly, or the Eldar, okay? We're gonna get to that later. So, starting off right from the top of the chapter, Vanyar and Noldor. Like we talked about right here in our list. Super helpful little list in the back of the book. Vanyar and Noldor. The Vanyar, first host, led by Ingwe. Noldor, they're the Deep Elves, the second, led by Finwë. Finwë's gonna be real important for this chapter, and Ingwe's kind of always important. Again, we go on to talk about later in this chapter that Ingwe becomes essentially High Lord of all the elves. He's the king. He's the big cheese, okay? Ingwe is the big cheese of the elves. Just keep that in mind always. So the Vanyar and the Noldor make it to the western shores of the Hitherlands. We get a little bit of a description of the lands. We talk about how in the north, after the Battle of Powers, shores kind of bent westward. Again, the Battle of Powers was this really big event that completely changed a lot of the world. That's one of the things I love about this book. I love it when actions taken by characters have very physical consequences. Like one of my things that I really love in a lot of movies and games and books and things is when, like, for instance, if a character goes on a very difficult journey, they don't come back unscarred, right? Like, for instance, related to this, Frodo, he comes back and like he literally had to lose his finger, right? It's, you know, it's kind of tropey at this point. A lot of people copied from that. Star Wars. You know, Star Wars did that a lot, but like it works, right? It's effective. It goes to give a visual representation of what a character has to lose and it's visual representation also of what they went through. And I like it when you have something like the Battle of Powers, this big world-shaping event. And not only is it world-shaping, like, figuratively in terms of, like, you know, the whole people and politics and power, but it's also world-shaping. You see that reflected literally in the reshaping of the world. I know I talked about that a lot last time when we talked about the Battle of Powers, but it continues here. So the shores bent westward until in the farthest north of Arda, a narrow sea divided Aman, upon which Valinor is built. Now this sea is full of ice because of the violent frosts of Melkor. So, because of this ice, because there's all this ice, all this stuff, it's just a whole big old mess. You really don't want to have to walk through that stuff. It's far too cold, far too icy. Because of the ice, Oromi, who is the god who is leading all of these hosts of these elves who are trying to go westward, trying to get to Valinor, he says, you know what? No. He decides not to bring the Elderly, or the Eldar, equivalent here, into the far north because of this ice, so instead he brings them to fair lands about the river Tirion, afterwards named Bellerin. Let us pull up the map of Bellerin. So here we are. I don't know where exactly on the map everything is. You got the Bay of Bellar, though, down here, which we are definitely going to talk about. Here it is, the mouths of the river Tirion. Right about there, right? The mouths of the river Tirion pours into the Bay of Bellar south on the map. That's where we are. We are here, right at the mouths of Tirion, right by the Bay of Bellar. Oromi brings them here. They finally made it to this westernmost area. They're ready to go. They're all ready to get over to Aman to go party in Valinor. Valinor all night and day. I guess all day because there is no night in Valinor because of the whole Light of the Two Trees thing. It's a whole thing. There's no night there. It's just always day. So he brings them to this place which would later become known as Beleriand. Now the elves are here, right? They're here at the mouth of the sea, looking out into the world, into this vast ocean, this raging sea. And they look in both fear and wonder from Beleriand. Now, for now, okay, again, names, they change a lot. Names are important to keep track of, so we gotta do this here. You gotta bear with me as we try to keep names. As of right now, at the very beginning here of the story, Beleriand only refers to lands about the river Tirion. So, you see the river Tirion right here on your map. Okay, river Tirion, right by the Bay of Bellar, right by the Isle of Bellar, mouth of the river Tirion. Currently, actually, I forgot I have my markup tool. Oh my god, I can draw on the visually on the screen. This is amazing. I love this tool. So, right about kind of like this area here. Currently, this is all that they refer to when they talk about Beleriand, right? At the very beginning, this is all that there is called Beleriand. All this other land still exists, but again, the elves are new here. They don't really know much about this place, so they're kind of just, they find this little area and they kind of have to sort of settle here by the mouth of Tirion for a while, and they call this area Beleriand. But as time goes on, you know, the elves are going to migrate, going to move out. Some are going to move some are going to move out into the west over towards Valinor. Some are not. Some are going to kind of just hang out here, and they're going to move around and kind of explore Beleriand more. And then that's where the boundaries start to expand a little bit, right? That's how things start to change. The map of Beleriand, what is referred to as Beleriand, starts to grow. All that sort of good stuff. It will soon expand. The name Beleriand will soon expand to include all ancient coast of the northwest of Middle Earth. So again, this is something that when I first read this in middle school completely confused me. All right, I was very confused what Beleriand actually was. And if I had taken the time to not be a stupid kid and slow down and actually read the text and digest what is being said here, Bellerin is Middle-earth. Okay, that's very important to keep track of. When I was a kid, I thought they were like two completely separate continents. I thought like Bellerin was some weird other continent that life started on and then Middle-earth came later. No. Bellerin is in Middle-earth. Bellerin is all of the ancient coast of the northwest of Middle-earth. So if I pull out on our map here, if I zoom out, this is all a part of Middle-earth. All of this is a part of Middle-earth. It's just sort of like it says in the text, the northwest ancient coast. Now, like I said, the elves are here. I'm going to zoom back into our little area just to keep in track where we are. Here we are down here, Mouth Syrian, Bay of Balar. Bay of Balar. God, I hate my voice. Bay of Balar. The accent comes out. Sometimes I try to have a not grating voice. I try my best to make my voice not grating and nasally and annoying, but it just happens sometimes. Sometimes the nasaliness just reaches out and grabs me and like forces me into this annoying voice mode. And so then I just start going, mouth of the river Syrian, the Bay of Balar, Bay of Balar. I'll try my best to not fall too into that trap. I try my best to have a nice voice, but hey, what can you do? You can't fight fate, right? You can't fight destiny. So again, the elves are all sitting here having a good time, and they're like, so how are we gonna get all the way across the sea to Amen, to Valinor, to that cool little place? Well, Ulmo visits the shores here. He comes up. So it's important to note, this is Ulmo, god of the seas, remember? I don't remember if he's been mentioned. He was in the last few chapters, I think. He talked about wanting to actually participate in the Battle of Powers, which is significant because, again, he likes to sort of stay out of this stuff. That's just the kind of person Ulmo is. But it's important to note here, it does say Ulmo on the Council of the Valar visits the shores. So it's not his idea. He is not wanting to go do this right now, right? He loves Middle-earth and he loves the people, but again, I don't think, yeah, that's right. He doesn't want to bring the elves to Valinor. He thinks they should stay in Middle-earth, the Valar could stay in Valinor, you know, separation of church and state and all this sort of stuff. So, but the Valar are saying, hey, Ulmo, you gotta go. You gotta go bring these elves. They want to go to Valinor. You gotta bring them to Valinor. So he goes up to the shores and he starts to talk to the Eldar as they look out into the sea. I love this. So again, Ulmo talks through the water and the waves and the sea. The sound of water is the sound of Ulmo, it is said. So his song of the sea makes all of their fear of the ocean go away. They love the song that Ulmo makes with his waves so much that they're like, hey, maybe the ocean's not so scary. Maybe, in fact, the ocean is pretty cool. I love that so much. I love that that's how he like quells their fears with the beauty of the sound of crashing waves and the beauty of this song of the water. It's really nice. I love the sound of water, and so I like that they kind of, that's how he uses it to calm them. And I think it's a calming force, okay? Because sometimes you need to calm down, and it's very difficult, and going for a walk, going to a river, going to a creek, things like that, it can be very helpful. And that's, I think we've talked about this in other chapters and other episodes and things like that. They've pointed out that Ulmo was kind of always close to people who, in their like direst times, right? In their times of greatest need, they always go to Ulmo because people will go to like the oceans and he will always hear what they have to say. Love it. Love it so much. But anyway, his song makes their fears go away. And so now that they're not so afraid, all they have left is the wonder of the ocean. And the elves are like, let's go. Let's go to the sea. So Ulmo, in his infinite wisdom, the Valar asked him to find a way to get the Eldar over to Valinor. Ulmo, as I said, in his infinite wisdom, uproots an island. He just says, you know what? I got it. You want to get them all the way across the sea to Valinor? I got you. Rips an island out of the ocean. He just, I love it. He just rips an island out of an ocean, and then he has his servants help him move it like a mighty ship and anchored it into the Bay of Bellar. Oh my god. That is phenomenal. I don't care who you are. That is amazing. His plan, his grand master plan to get all these elves across the ocean is, hey, what if I just ripped an island out of here, plopped it over here, and you guys just walked on that island, and then I like pushed the island across the ocean like a little boat. It's so good. It's so good. So the island right now is anchored into the Bay of Bellar. The Vanyar and the Noldor get on this island, and then the island takes them across the sea. I love how there is not a single mention of the Vanyar or the Noldor or anyone being like, is this a good idea? Like, nobody cares. They just get on this island. Ulmo just shoves an island into the bay, and the Vanyar and the Noldor are like, this seems like a good idea. They don't question it at all. They just jump on this island and they just float across the sea on an island. I love it so much. This world, again, it's so wacky. The Silmarillion, it really leans into the more, like, Lord of the Rings is considered fantastical, right? There's lots of fantastical elements at play there, but the Silmarillion is so much more so. The Silmarillion really leans into the wackiness of everything in this world, and I love it so much. So now they came at last riding on their little island, having a good time. They came at last to the long shores beneath the mountains of Amen. They finally made it. This long journey, it's all gonna be worth it. It's all gonna be over now. Whew. Thank Eru? Thank Eru. Thank Iluvatar. He's the big papa god. That's right. Yeah. Thank Eru. Thank Eru. Thank Iluvatar. So now that they're here, they enter Valinor and were welcomed into its bliss. But it is mentioned the island that Ulmo had ripped up had deep roots to the mouth of Tirion. So what was left behind was, as you will see on our map, the Isle of Bellar. Oh, I didn't point. My pointer was not very good. Here we go. Better pointer. The Isle of Bellar. That is where they are staying. This island this is kind of like the remnant of the island. It got like so deeply rooted into the world that when it got ripped up into this bay, it left part of it behind. So the Isle of Bellar is what is left behind. I love that. This is so ridiculous. This entire thing with this island, it's all so ridiculous, and I love it all so much. And OC came often. So remember, came to this island often. Remember, OC is a Maya and a vessel of Ulmo. And I believe, if I remember correctly, OC is also kind of like, their domain is kind of all Middle Earth, whereas Ulmo is more like all the greater seas. I believe that's right. I'm going to say that's right. I could look into the index, but I don't want to sit here for 5 minutes trying to search the index. So anyway, the Teleri. We talk about the Teleri now. Just a quick reminder, of course, we have our little, I'm going to delete that arrow. We have our little resource here that reminds us that the Teleri were kind of this group that were kind of unsure about a few things. So the Teleri, just a few reminders, was the third group that departed, led by Elwe and Olwe, and many did not leave Middle-earth, as is pointed out here on this thing. So the Teleri stayed in Middle-earth, right? They were in East Bellerin, far from the sea. So now we're going to zoom out. You have the sea to the west, and the Teleri, they're somewhere over towards the east, right? They're far away from the sea. They're not going to the sea right now. They're too busy exploring all the wonders of Middle-earth. They did not get Ulmo's summons until too late. So gosh darn it, they're not gonna get to ride on the cool island. They're not gonna get to take the island ride across the sea like everybody else. They got left behind with Nicolas Cage. They got left behind. And part of the reason they got left behind was because they were so busy looking for Elwe, but Elwe was too busy off holding hands for like 700 years. So like, God, that was very noisy. I tried to make my page flip for my notes not noisy. Wow, that is incredibly noisy. That comes up very loud on the microphone. I'm sorry. I like the sound of paper, though. I feel like paper sounds are good ASMR, right? It's not all bad. I am correct in this, right? The sound of paper is not awful. Think of it as ambiance. The sound of my notebook. Notebook ambiance. There we go. If I market it like that, then it's acceptable. So many of the Teleri didn't want to leave without Elwe, but Elwe doesn't care, because Elwe, even though his people are like, we want our king back, we want our main guy back, we want the guy who we trusted and followed all this way, but he's like, screw my people, I gotta hold hands for 1,000,000 years. But when they heard... what did I write in my notes? Oh, okay. But when they heard what happened, many Teleri went to the shores of Sirion and waited for their departed friends. Oh my god, I just completely messed it up. I am so sorry. I completely messed up my notes. I wrote it really weird here, and I don't know why I wrote it like that. I always write weird, but like I wrote really weird there. So what I meant to say is... So Ingwe and Finwë, they heard the Teleri hear that Ingwe and Finwë and all their hosts kind of left on the island. And the Teleri went to the shores of Sirion and waited, hoping that they could see their friends again. But it's too late. They missed the island. The island has left the shore, has left the port. It's too late, and they will not ever get to see their friends. Well, some of them will. Some of them will get to see their friends, but a lot of them won't. And wow, that is very sad. That is incredibly sad. So with Elwe off holding hands, they decide to make Olwe. I think Elwe and Olwe are brothers. I'm pretty sure Olwe is Elwe's brother. They decide to make Olwe their king. Now, Olsi and Uenin, who is the Lady of the Sea and the spouse of Olsi, they came up to the mouth of Sirion, and hey, they befriended the Teleri. They said, oh, hey guys, what's going on? Nice to see ya. And Olsi, he kind of likes to just sit on a rock all day and teach them cool things about the sea. I love this image so much. I like to think that Olsi is just this old dude sitting on a rock, and he's just like, did you know water is wet? Did you know water is a fluid? Did you know there are fishies in the water. That's what I like to think. He's just sitting there giving them all the important facts about the ocean and water and stuff that they didn't know on his little rock. So now, because of all the teachings of OC, the Teleri, who already loved the sea, love it even more. They love it so much. They're just all these facts. Okay, they learned what a shark was. They learned what a whale was. They learned what a fish was. And they were like, oh my God, the ocean and water and the sea and everything is so cool, man. We gotta go. So they already love the sea because they love the sound of water, right? That was part of the whole thing. I believe they stayed back and they heard like some of the streams and rivers and like explored that stuff and loved the sound of water. So now they love it even more. Many years then pass. We're just gonna jump forward a whole bunch of years. And the Noldor and Finwë are sad about their sundering from the Teleri. So even though the Noldor and Finwë and all these people are out partying over in Valinor, having a great time, responsibly, of course, responsible good times in Valinor, right? They are sad that they're not going to get to see the Teleri anymore. They're sad they're not going to get to see their friends who are out in Middle-earth. It's so sad. So the Noldor and Finwë, they're all like sad. And, you know, again, Ulmo, being Ulmo, hears their prayers. So one of the things I love most about Ulmo is he always listens, right? Even if he disagrees, even if he's like, no, the Teleri should stay in Middle-earth and explore that land which they were given, he still listens to the cries and the prayers of the people, right? So they cry out and they're praying and they're like, we want to see the Teleri, we want to see our good friends. And so Ulmo, they go to Ulmo and they ask him to bring the Teleri to Amen. So Ulmo, even though he doesn't want to, you know, even though he's kind of unsure about bringing more elves into Valinor and all that crazy stuff, Ulmo goes to the coasts of Bellerin to take Teleri, who wants to come to Valinor. But OC, remember, who's sitting on his rock telling them all about the cool fish he found in the water, right? Remember, his domain is only Middle-earth. He only has Middle-earthian area. So he is really sad to hear that he would never again get to hear the voices of the Teleri. Just knowing that he won't get to see them anymore makes him so sad. That's one of the things I love about the Silmarillion. I love the relationships between the gods and the people and how like the gods, you know, like they grow close relationships. They grow like almost parental relationships with the elves that they're taking care of and things like that. And it's really cute and really cool. And I love it a lot. So OC's all sad that he won't get to hear the voice of the Teleri. So because of this, OC persuades some of the Teleri to stay. That's his grand master plan. Instead of just dealing with it, just accepting it, he says, guys, come on, guys. You don't really want to go to Valinor, do you? You don't really want to go party every day for eternity because there is no night there. You don't really want to go see the cool light spewing out from the tree, do you? You don't really want to go see all of that, do you? Don't you like Middle-earth? Isn't this all good enough? Don't you love being in night eternally? Don't you love the stars, man? And hey, it worked. Some of them decide to stay, and those who do stay are referred to as Falathrim, the Elves of the Phallus, who later dwelt at havens of Brithambar and Eglarest. You know my struggle with fantasy pronunciations, especially in the Silmarillion. You know, I'm trying my best. I'm working hard here. I'm trying. But Eglarest, the first makers of ships. And we get a big important name drop here. Oh, I probably said it wrong. I was saying it like cheese curds. Curd the shipwright. Kermit the frog, Círdan the shipwright. Círdan the shipwright was their lord. And another important figure. Let me see if I can look anything up. Is there any good art of Círdan the shipwright? Of cheese curds, the shipwright? Of curded milk, the shipwright? Círdan the ship. The shipwright. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba. Here we go. Here's some stuff. Círdan the shipwright. Look at this lad. Look at this lad. Look at Círdan and his cheese curd beard. Círdan the shipwright. Oh, hey! Is that Círdan the shipwright in the Grey Havens? Is this an important figure? Is that Círdan the shipwright hanging out next to Galadriel? Is this an important figure that perhaps we should maybe pay attention to? Is this an important name drop? Círdan the shipwright, would he maybe have something important to do with that whole Grey Havens thing? Maybe. Maybe. I only underlined it once in my notes, so, you know, important stuff just to keep in mind. Círdan the shipwright and the elves of the Fallas here hanging out. Important stuff to keep in mind. But now we gotta remember the Teleri, their whole thing is about breaking up into multiple groups. So you have some kinfolk and friends of Elwe who also remained in Middle-earth, still looking for Elwe. They would have departed if Ulmo and Olwe gave them more time, but they didn't, okay? Again, this whole island thing, right? It moves. This island moves on a strict schedule. We have a strict schedule for island moving, okay? We have, you get your one shot. If you're not there by 11:15, too bad. The island is shipping out, and that was the last island for the next millennia. That's all you get, baby. So because of that, the main host of Teleri, the main host of Teleri gets on the island and Ulmo takes them away. Most of the Teleri do go on this island and go away. But the ones that were looking for Elwe, they don't get to go. They missed the island. Too bad, so sad. They're stuck looking for Elwe, who doesn't care because he's off holding hands. The friends of Elwe who stayed behind call themselves Eglith, the Forsaken People, because Elwe just left them there to rot because he wanted to go hold hands with some woman for like 1 billion years. Like, we get it, dude. I'm sure she's very beautiful and really cool and awesome. I'm sure you love her, but you abandoned all your people. And not only were they abandoned by Elwe, they were abandoned by Ulmo because he left with the island and they couldn't get to the island on time. So of course they're the Forsaken People. Everyone leaves them behind. They're trying their best. They're trying to best. But everyone just doesn't care and leaves them behind. And it's so tragic and sad. Oh my God. Poor Forsaken People. They dwell in the woods and hills of Bellerin instead of the sea, which makes them sad because they love the sea. But guess who's not in the sea? Elwe, because he's off in the woods having a good time holding hands. That will never get, I will never get sick of talking about Elwe holding hands for like 1,000,000 years. It's really cute and it's really romantic, but it is also funny, okay? And that's the best. The best things in life are cute, romantic, and also hilarious. That is my wisdom for the day. The desire of Amen was still always in their hearts. Depressing and tragic. Anyway, Elwe awakes from his trance Finally, he awakes from his trance and comes forth with Melian, and they dwell in the woods in the midst of the land. Now, here is an adorable part, okay? As I was saying, the whole Elwe and Melian thing, it is adorable. Even if he forsook all of his people, it is adorable, and I guess that makes it okay. So while he did want to see the two trees, Elwe did want to go see the two trees, in the face of Melian, he saw the light of Aman, as in an unclouded mirror, and was content. That is so adorable. I love that so much. That is amazing. He's like, I want to go see the light of, like, literal heaven, essentially. He really wants to go and see this light where all the gods are hanging out, but he says, in your face, that is all the light I need. Beautiful, adorable, cute, super sweet, all the words you can think of, there it is. His people, though, were happy to see him. They're like, thank Eru, about damn time. Are you done holding hands yet? Oh my god. And while he was cool before, being with Melian for like a million years made Elwe even cooler. Okay, he's an elf, but because of his time with Elwe, with Melian, he now appeared as if he were a lord of the Maiar, his hair long, gray silver. He was the tallest of the children of Iluvatar, and a high doom was before him. Beautiful stuff. I love it. I also love how being with Melian makes him like a cooler person. Cool stuff. So, OC followed the host of Olwe and called to them, and they came to the Bay of Eldamar, and they knew his voice. So remember, they are on this island, right? Olwe is taking them across the sea on this island, and OC, who loves these people, and he's like, no, don't go, don't leave Middle-earth, you're my best friend, and I have no other friends, don't leave Middle-earth, please, I need you, you're my best friend. He follows them, and he's like, yo guys, he's just following them and just yelling at them the entire time. And he's begging them to stay. He goes to the Bay of Eldamar, and then they knew his voice, and so the elves on this island, right, they hear OC, their best friend, and they're like, oh, but we're so sad. And so then they beg Olmo. They're like, Olmo, stop the island, stop this island, turn around this island right now, sir. They're like, stop this island right here. And Olmo, again, because he listens to the people, he's like, okay. And anyway, he didn't really want them to come to Valinor. He didn't think they should go to Valinor anyway. And he knew that Teleri loved Middle-earth, and so, you know, he's like, okay, fine, you guys will stop right here. So they stop, and OC roots the island to the foundations of the sea. So this is interesting. It's interesting. It's cute, again, that we have the whole, like, relationships between the gods and things like that. But some people are not going to be too happy about this turn of events. The Valar, who wanted the Teleri to come and join the big party over in Valinor, were mad, and Finwë was sad. I like what I wrote in my notes here. I wrote, this made the Valar mad and Finwë sad. It's just nice and succinct. That's all you need to know. But Finwë, even though he's already sad, right? The Teleri aren't going to make it. He gets even sadder because then he hears about Elwe and what that lad was doing, and that he's still stuck in Middle-earth and he missed the island and there's no going back. We can't bring the island back, man. You had one shot to get on that island. And so Finwë's really sad because he realizes he's probably never gonna see Elwe again, except for maybe in the halls of Mandos, essentially the afterlife, right? He's like, essentially that's it. Like, I'm not gonna see him. I'm not gonna see my best friend ever again. Maybe I'll see him in the afterlife if I'm lucky, but like, that's not a great certainty either. So awesome. The Isle would not be moved again, and so it stood alone in the Bay of Eldamar, called Tolaressa, the Lonely Isle. Now, Tolkien just loves lonely landforms. You got the Lonely Mountain, you got the Lonely Isle. He just loves it when landforms are lonely and sad. Is there any good art for the Lonely Isle? I want to find out here. Let me pull up and see if there's any good artwork or maps or anything of interest. The Lonely Isle. Bop, 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 bop. Oh, it's a sea. There's a Sea of Thieves wiki. It's on this. There's apparently a Lonely Isle in Sea of Thieves, and so that's what pops up is the Lonely Isle on the Sea of Thieves wiki. Okay, great, but this is not this Lonely Isle here that you see on the screen. This is not what it looks like. This is not what Lonely Isle in the Silmarillion looks like. This is the wrong Lonely Isle. The Lonely Isle, Tolkien, thank you. Here we go, Toloressa, that's what I should have searched. Toloressa, here's some fun stuff. Can I pull this up and open image, a new tab? Thank you, there it is. Nice and beautiful with all the swan boats. Oh my god, I am so excited to get to the swans. I am so excited to talk about the swans. We'll get there soon. There's some great stuff coming up, some great names, some fun stuff. Is there any other art? It's a little low res. I'm a bit upset. I think that's the best thing we've got is this Toloressa. Oh, here we go. Is this a map? Ooh, even better. Maps would be good. Nope. I don't think this helps much. Yeah, I don't think it helps much. But here we go. That's kind of pretty. If this is a higher res, I might just go with this. It's not as detailed. But this one's got the swans, so this art wins the day. The swan art always wins in my book. That's how it goes, okay? If it has a swan, 10 points. 10 extra points for having a swan. That is how I rate everything in my life. So now, here on Toloressa, the Lonely Isle. There the Teleri were happy under the stars of heaven, but within the sight of Amen. It's kind of like this happy medium perfect place, right? They got the stars of Middle-earth, they still got that, but they're also real close to Amen, so they got that kind of cool stuff there too. It's the best of both worlds, the Hannah Montana. It's awesome. Since they were so separated, though, because, you know, they are the Lonely Isle, they're kind of by themselves and that whole thing. Since they are so separated, their speech became separated from that of the other elves. And so it's kind of sad. They're not, it's, you know, they kind of, well, it's kind of cool, though. I love how Tolkien works with languages and he talks about the evolution of languages and how, like, hey, you know, since they're kind of physically cut off, they kind of make their own language. Well, not make their own, but like it evolves, right? It evolves from what it was and it changes and there's new words and different things. And so communication between these groups of elves becomes not as easy and you start to form more distinct, different cultures of elves. It's really neat stuff there that's happening. They became very different from the Vanyar and the Noldor because of this. And hey, speaking of the Vanyar and Noldor, let's jump back over to them. They are hanging out in Valinor, and they are gonna get their own place, their own dwelling place. You know, as cool as, well, maybe not Valinor specifically, because Valinor is the city, and then Amen is kind of like the land. So they get their own little dwelling place over in Amen. Because, you know, while it's not, while the Valar love them, right? They love them very much, but at the same time, space is not always a bad thing. You know, they're kind of like, it might just be nice to have a little bit of space. As much as we love you, space is kind of nice too. Even with the tree-lit gardens, though, the Vanyar and the Noldor still wish to see the stars again. It's sad. It's really sad. Because that's one of the things, okay? Can we talk about this? All of these, like, perfect places, right? All of these perfect places, either in this or in other works. There's always this idea of like, it's endless day and it's always bright out. Doesn't that sound miserable, right? From my perspective, that sounds like hellish. I hate the idea of it always being super sunny and super bright. I like it when it's cloudy. I like change, right? I don't like the idea of it always being bright. I like the idea of there being shifts and changes day and night and things like that. And the idea of like never seeing the stars because of these stupid trees bellowing light constantly sounds miserable. And not to mention, how are you supposed to sleep with the trees always bellowing this light all the time? That sounds miserable. But here in Valinor and in other like mythology things of like the perfect paradise, they always have the perfect paradise as it's always day eternally. And I don't know, just to me, that was always a weird thing. And I like that Tolkien kind of acknowledges that here. And he's like, hey, maybe that's not perfect. Maybe it being day all the time is not a good thing. Maybe you kind of like to see the stars every once in a while. Maybe, please. Because of this, a gap was made in the walls of the Pelori. Remember, the Pelori are the mountains of defense of Aman, right? They're these big mountains that the Valar raise up to defend their land from Melkor and all that sort of stuff. So there's a gap made in these mountains, and there, in a deep valley, the Eldar raised a high hill called Tuna. Tuna. Well done. Well done, Elder. That was great. The Eldar, well done. Well done. Pat on the back. Slow claps. Slow claps all around. So proud of you. You raised a hill. This is where you're good. This is going to be like a perfect place for you. This is going to be your little piece of pie, your little piece of heaven, and you named it Tuna. Now listen. I love a good tuna as much as the next guy, right? We all love a good tuna, but I mean, come on, man. Come on. So, from west, light of the trees fell, and to the east was the lonely isle. Again, kind of this happy medium idea, kind of this like, we're kind of in the middle between like heaven and, I mean, Middle Earth and Arda at this point, it isn't hell, and Melkor being wrapped up kind of helps with that. So it's kind of like heaven and earth, I guess, kind of a in between there. Woo, loud page turn. Ayo, everyone's favorite. So the light passes from Valinor to the Lonely Isle, which is another benefit of this hole in the mountains is the Lonely Isle gets some of that light now. Again, the Lonely Isle's got it perfect. They get the best of both worlds. They get the stars and now they get the light too. It's perfect. And the western shore of the Lonely Isle grew green and fair, and there, on that shore, bloomed the first flowers east of the mountains of Aman. Cool stuff. That's cool. It's cool that now that the light is finally allowed out into the world a little bit, not very far into the world, just to the westernmost shore of the Lonely Isle, finally plant life is allowed to like begin flourishing and living again. About time. Upon the crown of Tuna, which is a sentence I just love so much. Like, come on, you named it Tuna. You named the hill Tuna. Upon the crown of Tuna, the city of the elves was built. The white walls and terraces of Tirion. Let's pull up a picture of Tirion. Tolkien. We gotta have Tirion Tolkien though, or else we're gonna get the other Tirion. Tirion Tolkien. We want the city Tirion. Hey, there it is. Look at this. Wow, it's a beautiful little city. You got all these hills and all of these white walls and towers and terraces. And hey, wait a minute. Hold on. That's right. Rings of Power connection, baby. We're back. We finally got another connection to the Rings of Power. So let me pull up the Rings of Power photo here. The first teaser photo. This is believed. It is currently proposed that the city we see in... Where is it? I had it pulled up. Oh, I was ready for this. I was ready, and now it's gone. Oh, here it is. Okay. It is proposed that the city we see in this teaser image right about here could be the city Tirion. And you know what? I think it's possible. I think it's entirely possible that that is the city Tirion. It makes sense geographically, right? Because you've got the city here, you got the light of the two trees hanging out over there. Like, it makes sense. It fits. It fits the description. Not only does it fit the description, if you look at this city that we have in the teaser image, and then we go over to the artwork, some of the more famous artwork, I'm gonna move this up here. You see the similarity, right? You can see how people would start to think that maybe, just maybe, there's a bit of a relationship between these two. It's not confirmed. I do not believe they have confirmed for certain that this is the city Tirion, but it looks a lot like it. You know, it's sure looking like it could be. So we're gonna keep that in the back of our minds. Rings of Power connection number 1 for the day. Don't worry, there's more. We got a good Rings of Power connection day. This is why reading the Silmarillion is important, right? People keep telling me, does not matter. It doesn't matter. They don't have the rights to it. But listen, we know from a few interviews that the rights are a bit more squishy and that they are getting certain things approved from the estate on a case-by-case basis. Some things are mentioned in the appendices, and if it's mentioned, they might be allowed to pull a little bit here or there, right? Like, they have a little bit more power than we've been giving credit for. And it is, you know, it looks a lot like it. It sure does. And so, you know, even if the stories from the Silmarillion cannot be adapted, the world and the lore certainly is connected here. The highest of towers on Tirion was the Tower of Ingwe. A silver lamp shone far out into the mists of the sea. Few ships of men have seen it. In Tirion, upon Tuna, of course. God, I love that so much. I'm never gonna get old. And I think, yeah, in this chapter, we do leave Tuna eventually. But like, God. See, again, look at the teaser image. It fits, right? It's on a hill. It's on a little big hill, kind of, there's mountains, there's a hill, there's the two trees. It's kind of in a valley. If it quacks like a duck, I'm just saying. But anyway, in Tirion, upon Tuna, the Vanyar and Noldor dwell together in fellowship. Beautiful stuff. And since these people loved the white tree in Valinor best, Yavanna, the god of all the trees and the plants and all those things, right? Remember, she had her whole thing where she wanted to protect all the plants and all that. She had to like talk to Manwë, and Owly was like super rude about all that. Like, even though she finally got something to protect her trees, Owly was still like, but all your trees are gonna die. Remember all that? All those good times? Yeah, so Yavanna's back, and she made them a tree, like a lesser image of Tirion, but it did not give out its own light. So we can't see it in here because it's like a little, you know, in the image, you're not going to be able to see it. It's a small little tree. We're not going to be able to see it. But hey, it could be there. We might be able to see it in the show itself. Maybe we'll have to see. This little tree was named Galadriel in the Sindarian tongue. The tree flourished and had many seedlings. One was planted in Toloressa, the Lonely Isle, named Celeborn. That's a cool name. Interesting. Later came another, Nimloth, the White Tree of Numenor. Now, this is getting interesting too. Rings of Power connection number 2, Numenor. Numenor is rumored and said to be probably going to be very important in the Rings of Power show, in the lore, as we're going to explore further into our reading journey of these books. Numenor is, in the Second Age, an island where a bunch of humans are living together, right? It's kind of this golden age of humanity. You have these great kings and these great people all doing great things. It's kind of like, it's the peak of humanity. Humanity peaked in Numenor, and then it all went downhill when Numenor kind of fell apart, right? So in Numenor, we have this white tree called Nimloth. Now, to everyone who also knows Lord of the Rings, has read Lord of the Rings or seen the movies at least, you also know there's the White Tree of Gondor. I wonder if that's significant. It is. We're not going to beat about in the bush. Wow, I love how if you Google the White Tree of Gondor, the first thing that comes up is not a picture of Gondor. It's a sweatshirt design. It's to buy the sweatshirt on Etsy. That's the first thing that comes up if you search the White Tree of Gondor, is a bunch of products. Just the way Tolkien would have wanted it, right? You search the White Tree of Gondor and the first thing that comes up is a bedding duvet cover set. And then if you scroll down a bit, you get an art or a picture from the movies, right? That's the way Tolkien would have wanted it. Absolutely. For sure. That's exactly what he would have wanted. So the White Tree of Gondor, very famous, obviously, very well loved, and for good reason. It is a big symbol, not just in the series, it's also a symbol to the people of Gondor and to the human settlement in Middle-earth, right? Because in Numenor, you had this white tree, Nimloth. So maybe connection there? Maybe, human history, human culture, human legacy, stuff like that. Maybe significant? So yeah, another thing to keep in mind, especially when the Rings of Power comes out, and we'll have to see if they show the White Tree of Numenor, and if they relate any connections between the evolution of human society and the evolution of human culture and things like that in the Middle-earth universe. But moving on, Manwë and Varda over in Valinor. Again, we're done talking about Numenor for a second. Here, I'll hop back on the images to we'll hop back here. Hop back to Valinor, right? Hop back to Amen. Manwë and Varda loved the Vanyar, the fair elves, most. Acutely loved Noldor most and hung out with them all the time. The Noldor, therefore, became very skilled, and not only were they very skilled, they hungered for knowledge. In fact, they surpassed their teachers in their knowledge. Their speech frequently changed because of their love for words, and they always wanted names for all things they imagined. Masons of the House of Fenway, while digging for stone, right? They're trying to dig for stone and build these cool mansions and stuff. They discover earth gems. So this is the first discovering of all those cool earth gems, like crystals and diamonds and stuff like that. So because of this, they make a whole bunch of tools for carving them. And again, this is kind of like peak elf society, even a little bit. Peak society, I mean, you're living with literal gods, right? This is like peak elf society here, but it's even more so because they're all such good people. Listen to what they do. Instead of hoarding the gems for themselves, they give them out freely. Utopian society. Don't you wish we lived in that kind of world, right? They find gems. And you have to understand the significance of this. Up to this point, they didn't even know gems existed, except for maybe Elwe told them, maybe. But like, they didn't see them. It wasn't like a commonly traded thing. It wasn't like a big thing, right? And so then they find these gems. They find out that there are these beautiful, valuable things. And instead of hoarding them, instead of artificially increasing their value, instead of trying to find a way to get great personal gain from them, they give them freely. They give them to everyone. They're just like, hey, you want some? Here you go, have some. They're just like tossing them out like candy. It's amazing. It's like those parades where they toss out candy for the kids, right? That's what they're doing. They're marching down all around Ament and like, hey, you want some diamonds? Have some diamonds. They're just sprinkling them out into the sea, into the sand and stuff like that. It's beautiful. Peak society right there. The Noldor later came back to Middle-earth. And that's where that stops for now. And now, everyone's favorite segment, Lineages. Yay! I love lineages. I love lists of names. I love lists of names so much. Yay! Okay, let's try to pull up. All right, let's try to pull up. So we're going to start with, oh God, is it Fenway? Fenway lineage. Here we go. Thank God they gave us one of these in the back of the book. All right, starting with the Lineage of Fenway here. You got Fenway. You got Muriel, you got Indus of the Vanyar, right? Everyone's getting married and having babies. They all love each other very much. I'm just going to point out, I have a few notes on like the most important names that you're going to have to remember because there's so many names. If you want to know all the names, read the book for yourself. You should be reading the book for yourself anyway, or just look at this list of names. Look at this visual I have here. There's important stuff, right? That you're going to want to know for the future, and some important names you're gonna want to know for the future. So, Fëanor was mightiest in skill of word and hand, more learned than his brothers. Fëanor gonna be important for multiple reasons. We'll talk about that in the future. His spirit burned as a flame, and not only is Fëanor just important in his own story, if you look at the lineages here, you got Fëanor, and then, oh my God, he has a whole bunch of babies, and you got this person here, Curufin, and Curufin has got an asterisk, and that asterisk says, father of Celebrimbor. Rings of Power connection, everybody. It is believed that possibly Celebrimbor is going to make an appearance in the show. So who is Celebrimbor? Celebrimbor is the elf who helps to forge the rings, who helps to make the rings. Celebrimbor is an incredibly important character to Lord of the Rings and the greater story, especially for a story that is going to be a prequel to all of that. Celebrimbor is incredibly important to like the Second Age and things like that. So this is important stuff to keep in mind. Celebrimbor, we're getting there. Celebrimbor is coming. Babies of important people. Fëanor is already an important person, and then later in his lineage is going to come Celebrimbor, another important person. Fingolfin was the strongest, most steadfast, most valiant. Finnarphin was the fairest, most wise of heart, was friend of Olwe, lord of the Teleri, and married Olwe's daughter, Eowyn. Now, I don't know about you. It feels a bit weird to marry your friend's daughter. Now I get elves live forever and, you know, so like it's more understandable, right? But it, you know, like you could, you know, because like they could be like, oh, here's my daughter. She's like 3 million years old, right? So that like makes a little more sense, but it still sounds weird. Anyway, 7 sons of Fëanor. Fëanor, he had 7 sons. He had 1 million babies. He had 7 sons. Medhros the Tall. Maglor the Mighty. Singer, the mighty singer. He sang really good. He's got a great voice. Hear it everywhere. Celebrimor the Fair. Caranther the Dark, Curufin the Crafty, and a father of Celebrimbor, and twins Amrod and Amras. Now as for Fingolfin, sons of Fingolfin include Fingon, who would be king of Noldor. That seems pretty important. That seems like something you might want to keep in the back of your head. King of Noldor in the north of the world, at least. Turgon, Lord of Gondolin. Gotta underline that. Gondolin is quite important. We will be talking about Gondolin more. I don't remember specifically how much of Gondolin is in the Silmarillion. I believe there's some. But if not, we're definitely going to get to that in later books. One of my favorites, I believe Children of Finnarphin has Gondolin in it. I believe I am correct there. Have to double check. Anyway, moving on down the lineage. Eredhel the White. She was tall and strong and loved to ride and hunt in forests. She hung out with Fëanor's sons and had great friendship with them. She was called Arfiniel, the White Lady of the Noldor, because she was pale with dark hair and always was wearing clothes of silver and white. Now, we get to someone who's going to be even more important, more central to our whole discussion in connection to the Rings of Power here. The Children of Finnarphin. Finrod the Faithful, later Felagund, Lord of the Caves. Orodreth, Angrod, and Egnor. And hey, they had a sister named Galadriel. There it is. 3rd Rings of Power connection of the day. This is a great chapter for connecting to the Rings of Power. This is a great chapter for my gimmick. Galadriel is here. There it is, confirmed right there. Galadriel, there she is. First name drop, first mention of Galadriel. And it's in a lineage. Of course it is. Of course it's in a lineage. As much as I love the Silmarillion, this is why people get frustrated with it, right? It's very much like a textbook in a lot of ways, and there is beautiful stuff in it. There's so much more beautiful stuff than people give this book credit for, and I love to point that stuff out, and that's why I love to talk about this book, and I love to talk about all the beautiful writing and the romance and the fantasy and all the beauty and stuff that's hidden within this somewhat dense book. But hey, Galadriel, there she is. She is said to be the most beautiful of all the House of Fenway. Her hair was lit with gold as though it was caught in a mesh. As though it had caught in a mesh, the radiance of Laurelin. And now we are done with the lineages. Thank LOTR. For now, at least. Enjoy peace while you have it, folks. That's all we have for Galadriel right now. That's surprising, right? Like, there it is. Galadriel's here. And that's all we get for now. We'll get into more Galadriel shenanigans later on. Don't you worry about a thing. Now that we are done with lineages, here is how Teleri came to the lands of Amen. So, as they're sitting on the Lonely Isle, slowly over many years, many generations, lots of time skips in this chapter as well. their hearts started to change and were drawn to the light that flowed over the sea to the Lonely Isle. It's a good marketing trick, right? It's kind of like how, you know, how a lot of like coffee shops and like things like that, they purposefully pump scents out into the public to try and attract you to go into their store and to buy food, or like bakeries do that. It's kind of like that, what the Valar did. They cut that hole in the mountain so the light could pass out over to the Lonely Isle, and then it gave them flowers, and then everyone saw how beautiful the Lonely Isle was, and they're kind of like, I kind of want to go in there. I kind of want to go see it. And so they just had to. Their hearts just slowly gave in to the marketing of the Valar. But at the same time, they were torn between their love for the waves and their desire to see their friends and Valinor. But in the end, the desire to see Valinor and friends won. As cool as the waves are, as cool as the stars are, I mean, come on. Y'all best friends over in Valinor. They got this cool light. There's an endless party going on in Valinor. Come on, who wouldn't want to go over to Valinor, right? So the Valar make Olmo send Ose to teach them how to build boats. Now, Ose is sad because, remember, he doesn't want them to leave. He loves these people. He loves teaching them. He loves talking to them. It's good times all around. So he's kind of sad, but he listens. He teaches them how to build boats. And then, as a parting gift, Ose brought them many strong-winged swans. There they are, the swans. The swans drew the white ships of Teleri over the windless sea, and at last they came to Amen. Page flip. Try to make it, it's impossible. This page is, I can't make it quiet. But there you go. The Teleri have made it to Amen with the help of their swans. While they could do whatever they wanted now that they're in Amen and Valinor and all that, the Teleri chose to spend most of their time near the water. Remember, they love the water a whole lot. They're big fans of the water. The Noldor gave them many jewels, and the Teleri just threw them on the shores and in the pools. I know, okay, listen, I know the reason the Teleri throw them into the shores and the water and like on the beaches and things like that is because they love those regions, right? And they want to make them even more beautiful, and they want to like honor those regions and make them beautiful and things like that. But when I first read it, I laughed because it sounds so funny. It sounds like when you first read it and you don't think about it, what it sounds like they're saying is the Noldor gave them these super valuable gems that they worked super hard to get, and then they're like, and they just threw him in the lake or something. But no, there's deeper meaning to it than that. They got many pearls, the Teleri. They got many pearls themselves, and so their halls were made of pearl. Mansions of Olwe at, I believe it's at Alqualandale. Let's see if I can pull a picture of that. And the Haven of the Swans were also pearl. The Haven of the Swans. Oh, I love it. I love it so much. Okay, let's see if I can pull up Alqualandale. Oh, I got a country club. Alaqua Country Club. What? Hello? Hello, strangers. Hi, strange people. What are all these people for? Nutrigrain? What does Nutrigrain have to do with Tolkien? Okay, Tolkien. Tolkien, come on. There's no matches for my search. How badly did I spell Alqualan? Oh, it's not Alqualandale. It's Alqualandi. Here we go. Much better. Oh, that's a tiny photo. I might have a photo pulled up. Do I have a photo? Is this Alqualandi? Nah, this is not Alqualandi. Okay, well, here you go. Here we go. These tiny photos. Tiny little photos. Okay, we're just gonna go back to here then. No great photos. We did find out about a country club and some random people at the country club, I guess. So the Haven of the Swans! Hey, Haven of the Swans were also Pearl. This was their city and the haven of their ships, and the ships were made in the likeness of swans. So, and like we talked about before, it is believed that the photo I have on screen right now, the promotional photo for the Rings of Power, it is believed this might be the city Tirion. When I read this, I thought it could also maybe be Alaqualandi. It could be. It's possible. I mean, I don't see any swans specifically, but I mean, they could be there. You know, some of these cities are similar. You know, it's similar enough. There's water, and that's one of the things, right? It talks a lot about how the ships are made in the likeness of swans. This city was the haven of their ships. Gate of the harbor was an arch of living rock, right? And there's a whole bunch of connections to water and things like that. So with the big focus on water here, I thought maybe as well. So we'll see. It's a possibility, but I'm going to be a bit contrarian and say just keep that in mind. Maybe it's not Tirion. Maybe it is Alaqualandi. It's probably Tirion, but hey, who knows, right? Different things are possible. As time passed, the Vanyar grew to love the land of the Valar and the full light of the two trees. So they forsook Tirion on Tuna and dwelt around Valinor. So, man, all that work to make this beautiful town, the greatest town ever, and they left it because eventually they were like, I mean, the stars are cool, but they're not that cool, right? That's what they're saying. I'm just sad. I mean, come on, the stars are amazing. Come on, guys. They apparently did not care that much, and they were like, we really want to be close to the full light of the two trees, if that is a possibility, please. And so they kind of just gave up this whole city. They just left it. All that work. But anyway, memory of Middle-earth under the stars did remain in the Noldor's heart. They abode in Kalikira, because I believe the pronunciation said it's always a K. Kalikira, and in the hills and valleys where they could hear the sea, because they all love the sea. I love it so much. It's so cool. They also liked to explore, which is pretty fun. The people of Tuna and Alaqualandi drew together. Fenway was king in Tirion, and Elwe was king in Alaqualandi. I'm going to learn how to pronounce this stuff one day. But Elwe was always high king of all the elves, and he sat at the feet of Manwë upon Taniquentil. If I say it real fast, I sound cool. If I say it real fast, you can't hear all the issues. Taniquentil. Fëanor and his sons were always traveling. They explored even to the cold shores of the outer seas. They were often guests of Owly, but Celegorm preferred the house of Aromi, where he learned about birds and beasts, and he knew all their languages. I love that. If for nothing else than the idea that this guy was able to learn the languages of the birds. I love that so much. But then it is said here, he was able to do this because all living things that have ever been in Arda, except for all of Melkor's weird, personal projects, his own fan projects, that stuff. Except for that, everything that ever lived in the world lived in the land of Amen. There were also some other creatures that would never be in other parts of the world, never seen in Middle-earth, and they never will be because of how fundamentally the world has changed. And that is the end of Chapter 5, Quenta Silmarillion, Chapter 5. There you have it, people. Whew, big chapter, right? Like, it's not a very long chapter, but there's a lot in it. There's a lot of good stuff in there. Lots of talk about traveling island floating, Galadriel, Celebrimbor, Numenor's name drop, swans, so many swans, oh my god, great chapter. I love this chapter. Lots of cool talk about their cities and love of the stars and the water and traveling, lots of good stuff. I'm excited to continue reading the Silmarillion. Next time, we will be reading Chapter 6. What is Chapter 6 titled? I did not write it down. I have to pull up in my book. Oh no. Oh no. Chapter 6. Where's the contents? Chapter 6 of Fëanor. See, I told you, this is why we had to read all the lineages, because they do matter. The characters mentioned in there do matter. Of Fëanor and the Unchaining of Melkor. Dun dun dun. It's gonna get exciting. Told you, that Melkor, he goes away for about a chapter or two, but he always comes back. The William Afton of the Silmarillion. I feel like I am probably the only person in existence to have compared Melkor to William Afton. Anyway, thank you for joining me for the book club today. I don't know why you chose to hang out with me, but I'm grateful you did. I have a lot of fun doing this. I love rereading the Silmarillion. I love having this excuse to reread the Silmarillion. I love having you to talk to about the Silmarillion because God knows, LOTR knows, nobody in real life can take it. I just sat here spending an hour and a half talking about the Silmarillion. No one in my real life could stand that. So thank you for hanging out with me today. Thank you for talking about the Silmarillion. I am excited for next time, Chapter 6, continuing on through the Silmarillion. Hopefully we'll finish it at a decent time, a decent pace, right? Because I don't want to just read the Silmarillion as a part of this Books of Power series. There are the Unfinished Tales. There's some mention of Galadriel in the Unfinished Tales. I believe there might be some information about Numenor. I do maybe want to also hit on the appendices, and then any extra time we have. I mean, I would love an excuse to read Children of Finnarphin again, but we will get to all that. That is so far down the line. Keep it focused, right? Chapter 6 of Quenta Silmarillion next time. Thank you so much for indulging me in this conversation about the Silmarillion. Thank you so much for joining me and hanging out with me. I love you, and I will see you next time.